introduce myself initially. You know my name, right? Dr. Bijendra Jha. I have done BA, MA, MP, PhD, all in political science. Some part of 7 to 8 years I did from JIN, my MT and PhD. I worked with the Center for Policy Research, and I have also worked with Brown University 2 years. Then I have also worked with the Government of India, the Indian Council of Social Science Research. Right? I have also taught to Graduation College, Political Science again, and then last 4 years I'm engaged in running UPSC aspirants, right? Especially PSIR, right? Political Science and International Relations. So since today this is a first class, right? We talked about each other. First thing you need to know that what is the entire syllabus all about, and then what are the important area, right? For example, there are paper 1, paper 2. Let me write here. So for example, if you see PSIR, there are paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 2, right? And this paper 1 has 2 sets, right? Section A and section B. Here similarly, you have section A and section B. Right? Have you seen question paper ever? Or PSIR? You have it. Okay. So paper 1 has 2 sections, section A and section B. Similarly, here you have paper 2, section A and section B. Right? And if you see section A, it has 4 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Similarly, if you see question section B, here starts with 5, 6, 7, 8. Out of 8 questions, you have to attempt 5. Right? But if you see the structure, A has 5 questions, right? So 1A, 1B, 1C, D, and E. Right? Similarly, if you look at 5th question, it has similar pattern: A, B, C, D, E. And question number 1 and question number 2, question number 1 and question number 5 are mandatory. You have to attempt. You cannot leave it. Right? Raghav, making some sense? Right? This is paper 1. It has 8 questions. Out of 8, you have to attempt 5. But 1 and 5 are mandatory. So, you cannot leave these 2 questions. You have to. Then you will see 2, 3, 4. All are pattern like 2A, B, C. Similarly, 3A, 3B, 3C. Similarly, 4A, 4B, 4C. Similarly here, 6A, B, C, 7A, B, C, 8A, B, C. Right? So 2 you have to do. That is, what are the 2? 1 and 5. Now 3 more questions you have to attempt. So you cannot attempt all 3 from one side. No. 1 question you have to attempt. That's mandatory from each side. So either 1 you pick from here or here. This means you have to attempt 2 from this side, or 1 from this side, or 2 from this side and 1 from this side. That will be 3, no? 2 you have to attempt. 1 and 1st and 5th are mandatory. Making sense? Right? So that is correct. Now if you ask me, sir, and similar is there, we can type 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. Now 1 and 5 are mandatory, and then 2 you can opt from this side, or 1 from this side, or 2 from this side and 1 from this side. And at 5 questions you have to do. But this is, you see this is 5 now. If you see question number 1 has 5 questions. Question number 5 is 5 questions. So 10 questions तो ये हो गया. अगर 10 question का आंसर लिखना है, you have to answer, right? That is mandatory in 150 word. right? And then 82 is each question consists 3. And 3 more you have to attempt. And one question consists 3, it means 3 questions consist 9. Isn't it? One question, 1 and 5th, first and 5th consist 5. That is mandatory. 10 you have to do in 150 word. Fine. And each question, if you see, it has 3 subsections. 2A, 2B, 2C, similarly 3A, 3B, 3C, 5A, 5B, 4A, 6A, 6B, 6C. So 10 questions, then 3 more you have to attempt, and each consists 3. It means 9. How many answers you have to write? 90. Right? You have to write 90 answers in a PR. Okay, then you may ask us, what are the count? You know, if you count questions, how many questions are there? There are 28 questions. Out of 20, you have to 90. Making sense? Yeah, Raga? Clear? If any question, please ask me. Now, look at the syllabus. You got the idea, pattern of the question. Similarly, here paper 2, it consists 8 questions. 5 you have to attempt. 1 and 5 are mandatory, and then 3 you have to choose. But 1 you have to attempt from both the sides. It's not that you can leave section A and attempt all 3 questions from the B, or you leave the section B and take the question, section A and attempt all 3. No. 1 is mandatory. So it means 2 from one side, 1 from one side. It's your choice. Right? Clear? Now come to more about syllabus. That's very good. Syllabus and question. You must know first. So if you see PSIR, I told you that the paper 1, here you have paper 2. Now the paper has 2 sections, that section A, section B. Fine. Here similar, section A, section B. Now we have to know how many topics are there, what are the topics, and what kind of question has been asked from the last 6-7 days. Right? So that you can understand what are the topics which are more important. Right? Before preparing, you should know what to prepare, what to read. Right? So if you look at section A, it has 10 topics. 10 topics. Right? What are those topics? Next, if you see what are those topics. So, if you see topics, so here you see first topic is political theory. Its meaning and approaches. So, few of you have done BA in political science. Your BA is also political science. Master. Fine, no problem. Here we need to understand what is the meaning of this word. Right? And what are the approaches. So, there are many approaches like, political economy approaches, right? Political culture approach, political sociology approach, institutional approach, right? We must have gone through. So, there are various approaches. Fine. The second topic is state. So, there are different kinds of state. For example, there are liberalist, right? There are socialist state. Fine. There are pluralist state. So, there are different kinds of state. That is the second topic, right? Now, come to know. Meanwhile, new students has entered. Yeah. Yeah, your name? Happy. Yeah, we met, I think. Yeah, yeah. So, Happy, can you introduce to the others?
Well, I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Bio, and I'm interested in forest physics, and I'm aspiring for it. And I have chosen PSIR as my option recently. That's why I'm working on it.
Very good, very good. So, Happy, you are little late. It's all right. It's all right. I don't want excuse or anything. Since we have talked something, right? So you just meet me after the class. We will resolve that, right? I should not go. Right? I don't want to go back, but I have to go little because I have to connect you with the class, right? If you look at PSIR, we are talking about syllabus. So if you see PSIR, as an optional paper, it has two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. And paper 1 has two sections, section A and section B. Similarly, paper 2 has section A and section B. Right? So we are talking about what are the topics in the section A, what are the topics in section B. Similarly, we will talk about each section. And then thereafter, we will talk about what are the questions. How many questions from the last 6-7 years have already appeared in UPSC paper. So that we should know that okay, there are some topic you can find every year questions are coming. But there are some topic questions are coming but there are gap. 2 year, 3 year, 4 years gap. Right? So those topics who are appearing every year needs to be done carefully. Isn't it? Right? So that's we are discussing. Right, and we have talked about that section A has 10 topics. Topic number 1 is called political theory, right? And meaning and approaches. Fine. And if you see, we have to study different approaches, right? Like political economy approach, political cultural approach, institutional approach, right? Like system theory approach, input output approach, a structural functional approach. There are many approaches we talk about it, don't worry. Then second topic we need to understand state. Right? So there are different perspectives on a state, like liberal, what liberal thinks about a state, what socialist thinks about a state, right? What Marxist thinks about a state, what pluralist, right? There is one category, what pluralist thinks about a state, right? What postmodernist thinks about a state. There are different ideology and they think the state in a different way. Right? So different perspective and we will know the idea of state, the concept of state. That is second topic. Third topic is justice. Right? So if you see justice is a very important concept. Right? And here again you have different kind of or different perspective on justice. For example, there are philosophers like Plato, right? He wrote a classical text called Republic, and their subtitle was Concerning Justice. Right? Justice was a prime concern for the Plato to talk about. So, and even if you look at the 20th century, here Rawls, who talks about theory of justice, right? And he was criticized by different, theories like he was criticized by liberals, new liberals like Robert Nozick, right? Then families also criticized him for his conception of justice, right? Then if you see communitarian, they have their own perspective of justice. So justice, is a very contested concept, isn't it? Sometimes if you find something may be just for me, but it may appear unjust for you, right? We'll tell you why it appears unjust, why it is important and different from each other. So when we talk about this topic, third topic, now the fourth topic is equality. Yeah, equality. Now, this concept is a very normative concept. If you look at the society, right, this society is diverse and unequal in terms of class, caste, religion, gender, regional differences, right? Lots of differences. For example, if you go to the red light, if you stop the red light, you can see the inequality. Some are on car, BMW, some are on bike, some are on bicycle, some are at rickshaw, some are walking. You can find inequality. Right? Why do we need to talk about this concept, equality? Right? There was one philosopher that said that, whatever the differences may be, but the basic identity is that we all are human beings and having equal worth, equal dignity, equal respect. In that sense, we can talk about equality, but there are many philosophers who talks about equality in different ways. So here you can see different perspective here again. Like for example, here we talk about the liberal concept of equality. First we will talk about, Aristotle, Plato, what they talk about equality. Then we'll talk about liberal concept of equality. Then we'll talk about socialist concept of equality. Then we'll talk about affirmative action. Making sense? So that is the third topic. Fourth topic. Now look at the fifth topic. That are rights. Rights. Essentially a modern concept, unlike equality. If you see ancient Greek state, philosopher was talking about equality. But if you talk about the rights, it is essentially a modern concept. And you ask modern concept, then it came with modernity. This concept evolved from 17th, 18th century. Now we have, different kinds of rights we are talking about. For example, recently US code, denied women from right to abortion. Right? We are talking about right to marriage. We are talking about the right to work, right to eat, right to live, right to abortion, several rights, right to shelter, right to pollution-free air and pollution-free water. Several rights we are talking about. Right? So there are several, again here there are many theories. For example, natural rights. Natural rights theory. Then there are, generation of rights theory. Right? Very much related to then concept of human rights. We will talk about this, what is natural right, what is human right. Right? So here again you have different perspective of rights. Now sixth is, justice, equality, rights, democracy. Democracy is also a concept, a very much contested concept. Right? The last year, US held first summit for democracy. And the United States called approximately 120 countries and left many countries because US thought that countries are not democratic, especially China and Russia. Right? So democracy, now if you see democracy, every year we talk about whether we are decline, whether democracy on decline. Right? How is it declining? Right? So we will talk about democracy, and if you see, democracy has evolved. Right? For example, if you talk about Athens, there was a direct democracy. Right? So we will talk about Athenian democracy. Then we will talk about representative democracy. Athenian democracy was a direct democracy. Right? Direct democracy, where people actively participate, right, and hold offices, discuss various important issues, right? And to participation in administration, in protection of the state, we will talk about. So that was direct democracy. Then modern democracy involves as a representative democracy. Representative democracy. Why representative democracy? Because if you look at the population of the modern nation state, it was so large and it is not possible to, organize direct democracy. Right? We cannot think of it. Because if you see the India's population, it will surpass China in next year, right? And if you think it can be operationalized direct democracy, we cannot, right? So there is a representative democracy, then there is a participatory democracy. Participatory democracy, there is a deliberative democracy. Right? So there are different types of democracy that we will talk about. After democracy, right, we will talk about power. What is the concept? Power. Is it that all relations are the relations of power, including me and you? Why am I speaking and you are listening? Is it that my knowledge enhancing my capacity to influence you, to exercise some idea over you? Think about the relationship between a father and son, or two brothers, or two sisters. Why two sisters becomes Jesus? Is it that power equation sometimes become unbalanced? Right? We will talk about very interesting, all ideas very interesting. All ideas are very interesting. So we will talk about power, legitimacy, then authority, right? So we need to talk about. Then after power, we will talk about political ideology. There are different kinds of political ideologies, right? Like liberalism, then Marxism, then fascism, then feminism, right? Then you can say different kind of ideology there are, right? So liberalism, Marxism, socialism, fascism, feminism, right? We will talk about 8th topic, that is 9th UC. We will talk about Indian political thought, Indian political thinker or thought, whatever we call it. So we will talk about what was the concept that was debated by our ancestors. For example, Dharmasastra, right, or Arthasastra. This was the two traditions in initial phase of Indian philosophy. What did they talk about? Right? Did they talk about the state? Did they talk about society or organization of society? Did they talk about tax system? Did they talk about woman relationship between man and woman? Did they talk about how to organize foreign policy? Very interesting. So Dharmasastra, Arthasastra. If you look at modern, there are only few philosophers like Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, like Aman Roy, Gandhi, Ambedkar. These are the very important. So Gandhi, Ambedkar all are important. I cannot say, right, some are not important. We will study some, equally to each thinker. Now after 9th, you see the 10th is Western political, WPT, we talk about. Western political thought. You must have talked about or read about Plato. I'm talking about you, yeah. You must have read about Plato, Aristotle, right? Then you have to read Machiavelli, then you have to read, Hobbes, then you have to look at Law, Rousseau, right? Marx, Gramsci, right? Jasmine, right? Jasmine, then Hannah Arendt, right? So that is section A. And we will start section A, right? The section A is a root of your understanding, right? If you talk about international relations, it's very superficial, right? But this all section A, the different topics, this will give you certain, grammatical idea, theoretical idea. Right? For example, if you know grammar, you can write sentence. Right? So if you know this, you can talk about why there is a conflict between China and US. Right? Anyway, so that is the 10th topic that we will talk about. Now to talk about, this is section A. Any questions, any query if you have. Now if you talk about section B, there are 11 topics. So overall there are 21 topics that you have to cover. 21 topics in paper 1. Making sense? 21 topics you have to cover in paper 1. 10 in section A, 11 in section B. Now if you look at this, first topic is about national movement. National movement. And it has two subtopics. One is, what are the strategies that was opted by different leaders or group of leaders. For example, if you know the Indian history a little bit, it was early moderate whose method was and purpose was different. But later on, if you see that there was an extremist, right? At the same time, there was a militant, right, group, right? Then Gandhi came to the picture in Indian nationalism, in the movement. Gandhi approach was different. Then there was a peasants and workers. Their approach was different, right? Then so we need to discuss different approaches, right? Different strategy of a particular group. So there are different groups, different strategy to liberate India or to negotiate with the British. That we have to talk about 6 B, that is A and B, talk about perspective on Indian nationalism. So for example, liberal perspective. What liberal thinks about Indian national movement? What Marxist thinks about Indian national movement? What socialist thinks about Indian national movement? What Dalit, for example, Ambedkar, thinks about Indian nationalism. Right? What subaltern? You know word subaltern? Subaltern means people from the below. People from the below. So for example, if you just I'm taking the subaltern position, if you look at the Indian national movement, the leadership was from the elite family. Gandhi, can you say Gandhi was a farmer? No, he was a barrister. Right? Nehru. All were the elite. What about peasantry? What about rickshaw puller, workers? What they think about Indian national movement? That is what subaltern perspective. We will talk about. Very interesting. So different perspective we will talk about. Second, we will talk about making of India's constitution. Making of India's constitution. Right? How Indian constitution was framed. Right? What was the different perspective? For example, what Indian National Congress thought about Constituent Assembly and Indian Constitution. Right? What Socialists thought about Indian Constitution. What Muslim League thought about in this Constituent Assembly or India's Constitution. Right? What was their perspective? What Marxists thought about Indian Constitution. Right? And here you can see everything, it will be used in your GS. It overlaps with the GS. That is a good thing. Even the third you will read in political theory like equality, liberty, justice. Right? Now look at the PT questions. The UPSC are asking, asking from the last few years, from the 2013, very conceptual question. So if your concepts are clear, they will also help you. Right? In PT. Management will help you. Definitely. Right? So making of India's constitution, then what is salient feature of Indian constitution? We are reading polity. Salient features. Right? So what are the salient features of the Indian constitution? Like you will talk about preamble, you will talk about fundamental right, you will talk about BPSC, you will talk about the parliamentary system in India, we will talk about constitutional amendment, we will talk about basic structure doctrine, we will talk about judicial review. Right? Look at it. It's overlapping with your paper 2 GS. Now, if you see the next topic that we will talk about after this, we will talk about fourth, government. We will talk about government. So, you know that there are two layers government, that is four. One is union government, right? So, when you say union government, it has three branches, right? Legislature, executive and judiciary. Right? Making sense? Union government has three branches: legislature, executive and judiciary. Legislature means, what is a union legislature? Parliament. So we need to understand parliament. Core of the people. Like if you look at, even in 2016, UPSC asked only 6 questions from the polity, 3 were from parliament. Right? If you look at this year, the polity question was less. Majority were from parliament. Right? So we will talk about executive like president, prime minister, council of ministers. Then we will talk about Indian judiciary, that is Supreme Court. Then here again you come to the state government we need to study. So state government we have again legislature, executive and judiciary. Right, 3 part: legislature, executive and judiciary. Right, so here executive is very important. For example, governor. Governor is a very controversial constitutional position in India. Right, so similarly, for example, if you see, West Bengal, right? Have you heard about Dhankar? Dhankar has always conflict with Mamata Banerjee. Right, if you talk about Tamil Nadu, right? This Ravi has very conflict with Anastali. So this governor is a very controversial position in the. Then we'll talk about High Court, of course, right? Now after this, 5th is federalism. The local government. Local government. So I told you that this is 2 layer, 3rd layer is local government. Here there are various kind of local government. Primarily we will talk about PSIR, Panchayati Raj institution, and then we will talk about municipality. Right? But this is not that there are only this local government. There are, for example, if you talk about in northeastern states, there are autonomous council. Garo Hill, Jainta Hill, Gashi Hill, right? Bodo Council. There are so many. There are also reflects the local government. They have right to self-govern as per Article 371. Right? Even if you talk about PRI, the PRI of Bihar is different from the PRI of Kerala. Right? But holistically we will talk about local government. Of course, we are not doing research. We will focus on what we need to know about. Now, after this one, the 6th topic would be, commission. Commission. If you look at there are, primarily 2 types of commission. One is a statutory commission and second is constitutional commission. Right? What are the constitutional commissions? Also called constitutional body, like election commission, like CAB, like National Commission for Scheduled Caste, National Commission for Scheduled Tribe, National Commission National Commission on Basic Backward Class, recently formed or granted. Now, if you look at statutory commission, there are National Commission for Women, Minority Commission, right? Child, right? So we need to Study Commission. Now, seventh topic we talk about, it is federalism. Federalism. And all this will overlap with your GS, right? Policy. Right? So here, there are federalism is relation between center and state. Center and state. Fine. Then there are conflict between center and state. So many conflicts. Then there are for example, interstate water dispute. We will talk about. Then there are so many mechanisms to coordinate and cooperate relations among the different states. For example, interstate council, zonal council. We will talk about. Fine. So after federalism, 8 is planning and economic development. Planning and economic development. Here we need to talk about India's economy or India's political economy. Right? What was the model of development at the eve of independence? For example, Gandhian model. Right? There was a Nehruvian model. There was a Bombay plan. The industries of Bombay gave their own plan. Fine. So there were many planning, and then after that, Nehru opted a plan that is called mixed model. So Nehruvian plan was different. Then planning commission was very instrumental in organizing the India's development. So that we will talk about the next few years planning tribunal. Then we will talk about Indira Gandhi design, for example, Green Revolution. Right? We will talk about land reform introduced by Nehru. What happened after that? Right? We will talk about Green Revolution, and then we will come to LPG. Right? So development में तीन बार Nehruvian, Indira Gandhi, and then LPG. Right? And then we will talk about recent, for example, last few years. For example, since 2014, what India, whether India is heading towards development. Right? So we will talk about. Then our ninth topic would be, it is social movement. Let me talk about it is social movement. So there are many movements in India. For example, there are women movement, there are tribals movement, there are women movement, there are for example LGBT movement, right? और कौन सा movement है? Environmental movement. Very good. Environmental movement. So that we will talk about. Fine. And then 10th topic is perspective हो गया, grassroots democracy हो गया, statutory federalism, planning commission, caste, religion, religion and politics. Very interesting. The interaction between politics and caste and religion. Right? Fine. And then 11th is party system. Right? I have missed the sequence, but these are the 11th of party system. So political party we need to study like Congress, BJP, right? Regional parties we need to study, then coalition government, then we need to study, changing social profile of the Indian Parliament. Right? For example, first Parliament, how many women were there? How many members from OBCs were there? How many SCs were there? SC means scheduled caste were there. And what is the condition today? Right? That we will face the journey. So these are all our area. Fine. Now you will ask, sir, what will be the book? Which book? नहीं पूछना है?
Sir, I want to ask how much do we need to include the reports like ARC and stuff? Will you include the classes?
Yeah, see, I will do all the things, required things. Any report, it will be mandatory, I will do all report, don't worry. And it will require that if I give you email, assignment, okay, you go and then search different report, different thing you have to do, and then come with it. That's all.
when we read this book, is it necessary to read the whole book or just the summary of recommendation will do?
Summary of recommendation for the examination. Summary of the recommendation, not the entire book. Right? Not the entire book. So if you ask, sir, okay, we discussed paper 1. Paper 1, right? And we discussed what are the topics. There are 21 topics that we have discussed. Can you suggest a book? Let me tell you, my dear, books have been written, or there are many scholars who wrote books, right? But that book is entirely for university purpose, for BA, for MA. If I talk about in UPSC, there are no good book in the market, right? And even if you see, if I propose one book, right, it has many topics, right? It has many topics. You don't need to consult all topics. You need to concentrate, what are the topics in your syllabus, right? And that you have to cover. I'm here to give you entirety, don't worry. Even then, if you ask, sir, no, books give some satisfaction, some kind of satisfaction, okay? You won't be available all the time, right? Then, for political theory, right, you may say, for political theory, you can buy Rajiv Bhargava and Ashokacharya political theory. But let me tell you, the language is little dense. It's not easy to understand. But that is a standard book in India. And no other book, not a single book you can call, a good book. There are O.P. Gaba, there are, Sushila Ramaswamy, there are many books. But let me tell you, you can't clear UPSC with the O.P. Gaba language. If you are first generation learner, let me tell you. But if you are well with the literature, if your family read literature and you are in habit of reading literature, O.P. Gaba is good. Right? To understand the concept, but you have to give your word. Because a word has its own meaning, its own fragrance. Right? Its own fragrance. So, I'm here to give you combination of all, sometimes literature language, sometimes comparatively dense, but of course not dense like Rajiv Bhargava and Ashokacharya use. Fine? I'll give you a combination of all, and that will maintain the flavor and sense. For Indian politics, if you ask, sir, Indian politics, can you give me any book? There are many books. There are many books. For example, if I say grandiosity, right? Or if I say, there is one book, a good book, written by Pratap Bhanumika and Nirja Gopal Jain, Oxford Campaigning of Indian Politics. It is a thick, right? And there are many articles, right? You don't need to. If there will be necessary, I'll give you certain articles. Okay, take it. Right? I'll give you my own writing, don't worry. On each topic, I'll give you my own writing. Here in the class, what we will do, we will write, you have class notes and you will have my writing on each topic. Fine? So, read class notes, discuss in the class, make clear understanding, right? And then you can consult my notes. Any confusion? Okay, I'm here to discuss. Fine? Okay, fine, Radha. Oh, so you are here actually. Yes, are you okay? Yeah, very good, very good. Now let's talk about paper 1. Paper 1 clear? Right? Indian politics में रेखा section में you can say see, but कुछ पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं. I'm here. If there will be necessary to read even a paragraph, I'll give you. Don't worry. You will read this paragraph. Okay? Fine. Any question? No question? Now we talk about paper. Again here we know that it has section A and section B. The section A has 11 topics. 11 topics. Right? And section B has 8 topics. So here you have 19, total 19 topics. Making some sense? Right? Now come to section A. Section A is called comparative politics. Comparative politics and IR. So CP and IR. Comparative politics and IR. And the part B, very interesting, India and the world. How India interacts with its neighbor and the world. That is the section. Very interesting, right? So when I say how India does interact with the neighbor, India Pakistan, India Bangladesh, India Bhutan, India Nepal, India Sri Lanka, India Maldives, right? What are the problems? Right? So that's very interesting. This paper is very interesting. Now there are many topics which overlaps. Right? So here you have 19 topics, there you have 21 topics, but few topics overlaps. We'll tell you how does it overlap. Now, if you see comparative politics, first topic is comparative politics. What it is all about? What are the significance of comparative politics? Why do we study in compare wise? Why do we compare China and India? Right? Why do we compare China and US or Russia and US? Right? How does it help in your understanding? Right? Then there are different approaches. Again here you see different approach. Again, political economy approach, institutional approach, right? Institutional approach, right? Input-output approach, right? That is called system approach, structural functional approach, political cultural approach, right? So here this overlaps with the topic number 1, political theory, meaning and approaches. So here there was approaches that overlaps, right? Second topic is, second topic is state. This one, state in comparative perspective. Now we already will study state in paper 1. Now here we will try to understand how global north. When I say global north, it means US, UK, right? EU country that constitute global north. Developed country around the world. Because if you see the geography, they are all, in the north side, right? So that is called global north. How global south country? For example, India, right? Asia, Africa. How we can interpret the state? How state looks like in the global south? So there are different interpretation of the state, right? So we will here see, for example, if you see the state in Asia, these are called post-colonialistic, right? Or Africa, these are called post-colonialistic. Why post-colonialistic? Because these states were colony, right, of imperial power, right? So this state emerged after 1950, Second World War, also known as Third World, right? Third World. So we will talk about the state, then third we will talk about representation and participation. What does it mean? For example, here we will talk about political party. You can see topic number. There was a political party there in the Indian politics. We will talk about political party. We will talk about pressure group. We have to talk about pressure group. We have to talk about social movement. We already talked about social movement, right? So that we need to talk about. Topic number 3: representation and participation. Fine. Now come to the next. That is fourth is globalization. Right? And how global north, it means developed country looks at the globalization. How Global South looks at globalization. See the comparative politics now. The state we are looking with the comparative. How European looks at the state, right? Or even Indian looks at the state of the global north or global south. Here, globalization, global north and global south. Is it that it is from a cultural imperialism of the global north? For example, if you see from the morning till the evening, we use products. For example, Colgate. It is not Indian product. For example, I have, see this shirt is not Indian. For example, my shoe is not, even you see now your equipment. Right? So if you look at the globalization is a process where it accelerated the free flow of several things. Free flow of information, free flow of goods and services, free flow of labor, capital, etc. We talk about. Now, fifth topic, now come to the fifth topic, that we will talk about approaches of power. Yes, this was the comparative politics. Only 4 topics, that is, there in the comparative politics. Now we will talk about IR. So there are different approaches to understand IR. For example, idealism or idealist approach. Idealism. Right? Then realism. Fine. Okay? So there is a difference. Further partition, I will not talk about, I will talk about when we will talk about. Then idealism, realism, then we will talk about system theory, then we will talk about Marxist theory of IR, how Marxist looks at international relation. Right? Then how functionalist looks at international relation. Right? Sixth topic, we will talk about basic concept. Basic concept. For example, there are concepts, for example, national interest. What is this concept? Called national interest. Right? What is power? Right? In international relation. For example, you must have heard about soft power, hard power. Have you heard about sharp power? Sharp power. Sharp power, right? National power. There are different kind of power in international relation. National interest, you must have heard about. Each nation pursue national interest, right? So balance of power. We will talk about what is this balance of power. What is collective security, right? So different topic. Concept we will study. Seventh is rise of superpower. Rise of superpower. If you see. Superpower. So, for example, after World War II, there were 2 superpowers, US and USSR, right? And there was a Cold War after 1945. After the World War II, and then there was a different engagement or disengagement, right? Meanwhile, there was a NAM, right? There was a NAM. Then in 1990, USSR collapsed. Right? The Berlin Wall fall, right? Fell down, and then we will talk about rise of power, right? US, USSR. We will talk about Cold War. We will talk about NAM. We will talk about the US as a hegemon power. After 1990, US evolved as a hegemon power. We will talk about what is the meaning of hegemon power, right? So that is 7th topic. 8th topic is United Nations. Right? So you must have heard about the United Nations. Right? So there are, and there are different organs of United Nations. Right? There are 3 principles of United Nations. There are some objectives of United Nations. There are different agencies. There are different functional commissions. Right? Then we talk about, human reform. Right? Particularly India is interested in reforming the Security Council, United Nations Security Council. So we will talk about 9th topic. We will talk about international economic institution. International economic institution or system. For example, if you see World Bank, IMF, right? Then there is one called gap to WTO. This was an agreement, but WTO formed as an institution. Recently, 12th Ministerial Conference held it in Geneva, right? And there was a good result at WTO meeting, right? In which now third world country will have intellectual property rights waiver, right? In vaccine technology, right? They talked about food security. If you see, due to Russia-Ukraine war, there will be food crisis, especially in African countries, right? So we will talk about all this. Then the topic is, now, right? We will talk about now. And 11th topic we will talk about global concern. Global concern, right? For example, if you look at democracy is global concern. For example, till last year, Afghanistan was a democratic country. It was an elected government, right? But if you see Taliban, who took over Afghanistan, right? Similarly, if you see, United States Supreme Court, right to abortion was taken away from women, right? If you look at, the different democratic states, for example, Sri Lanka, right? Why Sri Lanka is in such position? There are different factors that contributed in Sri Lankan crisis, and one factor was decline of democracy. And decline of democracy means, there was no respect for human rights, there was an arrest. If you look at the participatory index, it was going down. If you look at the deliberative index, it was going down. If you look at the intellectual, freedom index, for example, our intellectual or academicians are able to think freely. They have to think along the line of state in Sri Lanka. That contributed, one factor. This was one factor. And there was another factor like, COVID pandemic, then there was some economic policy. For example, they have opted for organic farming that reduced 25% production, right? Agricultural production in Sri Lanka. There are many things, anyway. So global concern and terrorism. You see, the terrorism are the major issues around the globe. Then women question, right? Gender question. Look at US. Snatched away rights to abortion from women. Right? If you have seen, World Gender Gap Index, where India falls 135th rank out of 145. Does it mean India is very, very poor in terms of giving freedom to women or women participation in different spheres of state, like economic sphere, women participation in parliament, state legislature, right? A year before, the Supreme Court judge, right, Ramna has said, women, there is a need to, recruit women to diversify the judges, right? So if you see, there is a gender gap. Then there is another, like for example, human rights problem, right? There are worldwide human rights problem. Recently, if you see, there are the United Nations Human Rights Council accused Russia to violating human rights in Ukraine. So these are the topics which have global concern, right? That we will talk about. Then now come to the interesting part B, right? Part B. Now, if you look at part B, then first you have to think about India's foreign policy. What are the aim of Indian foreign policy? What are the principles of foreign policy? Right? What are the determinants of India's foreign policy? Right? Then we have to talk about, Indian foreign policy since 1990. How Nehru responded to the world during this time. He was a foreign minister, for his own entire life from 1947 to 1964. He was a foreign minister. How he shaped India's foreign policy. Then we'll talk about Indira Gandhi, and then we'll talk about after 1990. Right? And then we will also talk about, 2040. Fine. So that will be Indian foreign policy. Secondly, we will talk about India and South Asia. South Asia. Right? Different problem. So if you should, then we will talk about India, Sri Lanka, India, Myanmar, India, Maldives, India, Nepal, right? So, cross border migration problem. Then we will talk about water issues between India, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, right? Then we will talk about, the problem within this area. Why this area are not so connected, right? We don't have, free trade agreement with Bangladesh or Pakistan or other, right? What are the problems, right? So that we will talk about. Then third topic is, India's big brother. We will talk about, definitely, everything. We will talk about the power asymmetry, between India and the other states in South Asia. If you look India, right? India is very large in size. If you talk about geography, if you put geography of all states, South Asian states together, even then India will be the largest. If you talk about economy, if you talk about defense, if you talk about population तो पूरी दुनिया में हम लोग now we are moving towards, then we will talk about everything, power symmetry, different kind of symmetry, what other thinkers. Then third topic is in India and UN. India and UN. So how India played a role in United Nations. For example, India is leading in UN peacekeeping mission. Right? So that we will talk about. Fourth topic is India and global power. India and global power. Right? Now India, Russia, India, Japan, India, US, India, China. Right? That we will talk about. Right? Then fifth topic about India and NAM. India and NAM. What is the role of India? Right? And then the sixth topic is about NAM हो गया, India, UN हो गया, India power हो गया, right? Then one topic is India and the recent controversy. For example, India, Afghanistan, what is happening in Afghanistan, what is happening in South, West Asia. For example, ITU2. Recently, the Biden, US President, has arrived, Israel, and he also went to Palestine after a long time. And US, President is going to Palestine and giving some proposal to solve the problem, right? And if you look at US and Israel, both have proposed that we have to cover Iran, right? So that Iran cannot access the nuclear weapon. Fine, so that is 6, right? Then there are 2 more topics, right? If there are 2 more topics, right? So that's all about one topic about India, regionalization, regionalization of world powers. Like for example, EU, we will talk about European Union, we will talk about NAFTA, right? Then we will talk about, SAARC, then we will talk about ASEAN, we will talk about BIMSTEC, right? Fine? Then we we talk about various trade agreement, for example, that there is called RCEP, right? Regional Comprehensive, Economic, right? Partnership. Then we will talk about IPEF, that is called Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Right? We will talk about APEC, we will talk about OPEC, right? Don't worry, we will talk about India's diaspora and India's foreign policy, right? We will also cover all the things, and if you see, this will, overlap with GS paper 2, right? So GS paper 2 entirely, covered by PSIR. If you look at GS paper 1, modern history, for example, national movement we will talk about. So modern history will help you in GS paper 1, right? And if you talk about society, right? So whenever we will talk about social justice, then we will talk about socially disadvantaged group like women, transgender, right? So that will also help you. Now we talk about GS paper 2 already covered. GS paper 3, here you can see economic development, environment, right? Global concern में environment भी पढ़ना है, ठीक है? Fine. Then if you talk about so we will, that is the entire syllabus. Did you get idea? Overall पता चल गया? अब थोड़ा सवाल देखें. सवाल किस तरह का आता है, right? So we will look at question now. For analysis of question, let's see. And I hope you know the UPSC pattern. You know na? How many GS paper? How many GS paper are there? कितना है? 4 GS paper, And then apart from GS paper, what do you have? Essay paper. Have you seen? Yeah. Have you seen this time essay paper? There was 8 questions. Essay paper again has 2 sections. Section 1 and section B. Section A. Oh my God. No, I don't want this. Like this. I want this. Yeah. So section A and section B. Section A has 4 questions. Section B has 4 questions. So 8 essays, right? And you have to write 2, but 1 from each. ऐसा नहीं कि यहाँ से 2 कर दिया, ये यहाँ से 2 कर दिया. You have to attempt. And if you this time, and if you look at this time, 7 out of 8 were from your political philosophy. Right? So you can happily write essay paper. Don't worry about the essay paper. If you talk about paper 4, ethics paper, right? If you will read ethics in GS, you have to talk about Plato. And scripture, you talk about Machiavelli, you have talk about Hobbes, law, right? What they think about. So we will cover. I will take 1 or 2 class on ethics. Fine? That will shape your understanding on what is called ethics. Anyway, now come to the paper 1, section 1. Paper 1 and section A. Now topic number 1. If you see, 2021, there was already a question. Examine the importance of behavioral approach in political theory. What led to its decline? If you see, 2020, right? Discuss the significance of normative approach to the political theory. If you look at 2019, comment on resurgence of political theory, right? Then if you look at topic number, this 4th question, 2018, decline of political theory, right? Then behavioral approach, right? For example, if you see, political theory is not a escape mechanism but an Orwell's calling, John Clement. So if you see, every year there is a question. Every year there is a question. Fine. Now, if you look at state, now if you see the state, yeah, if if you see a state in 2021 there was a question 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15. Each year there's a question. Each year. Right? Now move to the next topic. Here 21 there is a 2 question on in 2021. 20, 18, 16, 14, 19 there was no question. But each year you can see here we have questions. So this is very important, right? Now come to the next. I'll go a little fast because in half an hour I hope we have half an hour and I have to show you, demonstrate you the entire syllabus, right? Now come to the rights. If you see 2021, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, I'll give you this PPT, don't worry. You can read it at home, right? Don't think today is a class where you can relax. No. Today you have to work more on your entire strategy than that. If your strategy is clear, if your goal is clear, what you have to read, and before you read, what you not have to read. Right? So it's very important. You must understand what not to read than what to read first. जो छोड़ना है हमें नहीं touch करना है. You are not doing MP here, you are not doing MA here, you are not doing PhD here. अपना काम से काम लगना है, पढ़ना है. After that you can study further. Right? Okay. So rights you can see every year there is a question, and I can tell you 1 or 2 class I can finish once. You can get 1 question. Right? You can get question. Right? Now talk about next topic, which is democracy. In 2021 there is already democracy, on deliberation, again deliberative democracy. 2019 again substantive democracy. 2018 there was again another portion on Macpherson's view. Then there is a deliberative democracy in next one in 2017, 16, 15. It means each year, if you look at the political concept, each year there is a portion. Right? I can teach you on 2 or 3 classes or the entire 3 day economics. Right? And in 3 days, you can ensure your writing care. Now, if you look at next topic, which is justice. Now, look at justice. Right? 2021 there is a question, roles. Right? Then, if you see in 2020 there was a question. Right? Then, if you look at then 2020 there was a question, right? This brief perspective and then roles. If you look at 2019 communitarian perspective, if you see distributive justice again roles. 6. If you go to roles 2018, now roles is very important, right? So and roles change the center, the core, and all revolve around the roles. Right, whether it is a communitarian, whether it is a entitlement theory of justice given by Robert Nozick, or whether it is a feminist critique to the John Rawls, or whether communitarian. So justice every year you can see there was a question. Now come to right after this political ideology. Now there are different political ideologies. I talk about I already talked about liberalism, socialism, Marxism, fascism, communism, but it is not that all ideologies are very, very important. There are few ideologies, for example, liberalism, you have more questions. From socialism, you have more questions. Now, if you see Marxism, there is only 1 question. If you see feminism, right, there is a question in 2019, 17, 20. This time it's very important for 2022, but attempting men's this time. Now, if you look at fascism, it was 2018, there was a question 2014. Again, these 2 are important. From liberalism, already asked. In 2021, there will be no question in 2022 from liberalism. Right? So, after doing all, when you go to attempt men's, you have to make a strategy. क्या पूछ चुका है, क्या हर साल आता है, क्या हर साल आता है लेकिन उस पे गैप करके आता है. You have to make a list, categorize, prioritize. VBI, but only after your teaching. You are confident, then you have to categorize. You will have not, you have to categorize. Okay, you have to make a strategy, right? So, which are very, very important. Just you mark it up, comment there, right? Then, very important. You have to probability is high. Then important. All question, right? Any question may happen. I'm not a god. No one can predict for what UPSC may ask. Right? So, but this topic, these two will live in more. What people do, people, concentrate equally on all parts. Look, we have looked the syllabus. Comparatively is vast. Right? So, we don't need to look and correct. थोड़ा strategy करना पड़ेगा. Now, move to next. Right? Dharma Shastra. Let me tell you Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra. Here you can make clear how you have to make a strategy. Yeah, Dharma Shastra and now if you see from Artha Shastra, right? There is a question in 2019, 2017, 15, 14. You can see from Buddhist tradition last year, 2012, then 2014, then 2021. From Buddhist, there will be no question in 2020. Definitely. Now here you see 2020, there was no question. 2021, there was no question. What do you think about 2022? There will be definitely a question from this tradition. Right? So, इसको हमें सिंपल. But जानना नहीं है that क्वेश्चन आएगा तो फिर क्या करोगे? सर को बोलोगे, सर told you कि हाँ you don't need to, but no, right? But super active इसके लिए होना है, इसके लिए थोड़ा चलेगा, right? Not the idea? Because when you approach to the mains, you have very less time to revise, right? So once you prepare, you categorize the things, then you are able to focus more on very, very important things. Right? And in this way, if you see in 2013 there was a question, in 2021 there was a question. Do you think 2022 there will be a question of Ahmed Khan? While you are wasting your time. Right? Wasting means after teaching. But you have to know about Sayyid Ahmed Khan. ऐसा नहीं पढ़ना नहीं है. Right? If you look, so there is no question from Sayyid Ahmed Khan. बिल्कुल जब revision है last छोड़ देना. Don't take it. Then if you look at Ordingo, right? Now see 2017, 16, 20, this time there is a most probability. There will be question on Ordingo, cultural nationalism. Right? So, cultural nationalism, there will be question. Right? And look, when there will be next report of UPSC, this time PSIR, just to check the mains paper, what kind of questions are asked, whether we are right or not. If you look at Gandhi and Ambedkar, these two thinkers are more important in modern Indian political thought. So 2019, 16, 15, 20, 18, 17, 16, in 2022, 21 there was no question. So 21 there will be question. 22, in 2022 there will be question from Gandhi and Ambedkar. Maybe Gandhi Ambedkar debate on certain thing, or maybe separate question on Gandhi, right? Separate question on Ambedkar. Definitely there will be question. Fine. Got the idea? Now look ahead. Now Emmanuel, in 2012 there was a question, and what happens in UPSC when question is asked each year, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, trend will be high. But when there was one question in 2007, UPSC is going to repeat that. Right? When trend is high, that post को भी catch करना है. What is the trend of the recent year? Fine. So कोई question नहीं होगा इसके ऊपर मेरे हिसाब से. Otherwise, I told you disclaimer. I already given disclaimer. होता है ना म्यूचुअल फंड में जब आप करते हैं, right? तो सारा वो मार्केट रिस्क के ऊपर है. यहाँ पर भी बहुत बड़ा रिस्क है. Now look at the Western political thought. Topic number 10. Now if you see Plateau. 20 there was a question, 19 there was a question, 15 there was a question, 19 there was a question. Look at Aristotle. 2021 there is a question, 17, 15, 14. Now, always there is a question from either this or this. So, now here we see in 2021 there is already question, right? From Plato, there was no question in 2021. More probability is from here than Aristotle. You need to more concentrate on Plato than Aristotle. Are you getting my point? That is after PT that you have to, make a strategy, because your notes will be so much thick, right? And you will get very less time, right? For example, you will get 2 months approximately time, and that's not sufficient. You have to prepare for GS. There are so many thick book you will have to encounter, book or notes basically encounter. There have also optional, thick book, not book, right? Your notes. So that you have to make. क्या हमें थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा करना है, पढ़ना, of course, right? Now come to the next one. Machiavelli. If you look at Machiavelli, 2020, 18, 15, 14, 21, there was no question. There may be Machiavelli. Question on Machiavelli. Or may compare Machiavelli with, Cotillard. If you see the Machiavelli's interpretation and Cotillard's interpretation about the state, about foreign policy, about power, similar. So, they may combine Machiavelli and Cotillard and can frame one question. Fine. Now look at Hobbes. 17, 16, 13. After 17, there was no question. There is no probability. I told you, अगर वो आ रहा है हर साल, trend is high, probability is high. Then here you can see no trend, there will be less probability. Now come to Locke. Locke in 2018 there was a question, 21 there was a question, see the gap. No probability. Jasmine, 2021 there was a question, 18 there was a question, 14 there was a question. Since 2021 there was a question already, on May there will be no question. Now look at Marx. Now look at Marx. 21 there was a question, 20 there was a question, 17 there was a question. What do you think? 22 there will be a question. There may be question. Right? Most important in WPT. After Plato, Aristotle, Marx is the most important. Right? Then come to the Gramsci. In 2019, 16, 15. But after 2019 there was no question. But since 2019 and 2022, so much gap. There may be question on Gramsci. Now come to the Hannah Arendt. Now see, in 2019 again 16, right? Before 16, 14. So again Hannah Arendt is also important. There may be question from Hannah Arendt. Right? Now, suggested book I have told you that, okay, for Indian political theory, Ashokacharya and Bhargava. For copy, this WPT, you can take Reinhard Nelson, but don't buy any book. Right? Don't buy any book. I'm here. From IPT, it's a notes, we are Mehta, MPC, Mansur was in one book, no need, right? This is for whom who are, preparing for their own self. They are doing self-study. Right? So, now come to the top, section B. We have talked about syllabus, right? Now, let's go to the question. Here you can analyze. Let's look at this question. I told you, national movement you have to study, and then political strategy and perspective. There are two subtopics, political strategy and perspective. Now look at political strategy. In 2020 there was a question, 19, 18, 17 there were two questions, then 15, every year there is a question, but 21 there was no question. Look at the second B point. 2020 there was a question. 19, 16, 2020 one there was a question. So from topic number this 1, what do you think probability is highly chance? 8. Right? From B there is already a question in 2021. So higher side, will be on strategies. Right? So topic 1. Now talk about making of India's constitution. If you look at there was a question in 2021, then 2021 again there are 2 questions, 19 there is a question, 18, right? So if you see there is a trend is higher side, then maybe or may not be, I cannot say. Now look at preamble. Look at preamble. Now if you can see preamble here, 21, then 2016, 50. In 2022, there will be a question on preamble. Now look at fundamental rights and duties. 2021 there was a question, 20, 17, all are topic number 3. There are 3A, 3B, 3C, right? So now look at another topic from the third. Directed principle, 19 there was a question, 16, 14. Look at parliamentary system, 2017 there was a question. Look at amendment procedure, 2021 there was a question, 19, 15. So this time there may be question on directed principle. Directed principle, yes, DPSP, and there may be one question on maybe amendment procedures. Maybe this time there is one anti-defection law, and the parliament is that is more controversial in the anti-defection law. There may be question from that whether it should be amended or not. What are the provisions? Anyway, now after that, look at the next one, the central government. 21, 20, 19, 18. So from central government, always there will be a one question, right? Either executive, legislature, or judiciary. If you look at parliament से बहुत 2013 में आया, उसके बाद नहीं आया. But it's not that parliament is very important. There will be question from this. Then judiciary, every year there you can find question every year. So there will be question from judiciary. Right. Now look at grassroots democracy. Every year you can find question from here. 2021 there was a question, 2020, 19, 18, there were 2 questions. So you can see you have to face question from the grassroots democracy. I talked about in terms of local government, right? The Panchayati Raj and municipal government. The question comes primarily from Panchayati Raj. Now look at the commissions. Every year you can get questions from commissions, right? So maximum question is from election commission, then CAB, then National Commission for Civil Crafts, then also question from minority commission, right? And if you compare, the constitutional body are more important than the statutory body, right? For example, election commission, National Commission for Civil Crime. Now move to federalism. If you see federalism, you can find every year there is a question. Right. Federalism you can find everywhere question, 2021, 20, right, 19, 18, 17. So you will find, you will face, right, this time question will be from physical federalism. Right, because there is so much controversy on GST council. Right, state and center are conflicting, right, on or contesting on GST council decisions, and Supreme Court has given decision that verdict that no, GST council decisions are not binding on the state. Right? Both can make the law. Fine? And both are equal part in Indian federation. So the question may be the changing nature of India's fiscal federalism. And this time GST council has also achieved 5th year. 5 साल का हो गया GST council. ठीक है? So there may be their birthday celebration by the UPSC. UPSC may ask question, right? You can look after your mains, after this year mains, you will with us we will discuss. 2021 economic planning and development, 2019, 18, 17, 17, there were 2 questions, 16, 16, and 15 there were 2 questions, very important. This topic is very, very important. Right? It will help you, it overlaps with the GS paper 3. Now come to the next one, which is caste, religion and politics. Everybody loves, right? The discussion on religion and politics. They may hate, they may love, or they may irritate, but they cannot escape the debate. Entire television is full of debate on religion, right? And anyway, we will talk about later their agenda and 2021, 20, 19, right? 18, 17. So there will be portion on caste, religion, and ethnicity. Especially, I am predicting this should be more probability rather than caste and ethnicity. Right? That's my prediction. I cannot answer your maybe question on caste, maybe question on ethnicity, but probability is more higher side on religion. Now, if you look at party system, everybody loves or hates party, right? Either any political party, right? So 2021, 20, 19, 18, 18. In 18 there were 2 questions, 17, 16, 15, 15 there were 2 questions, 14. Every year you have to face question from political party. Now if you move to the next one, electoral behavior, this is the subtopic of the 10th. So 2017 there was a question, 2014 there was a question, 3 years. Now 2022 there may be a question from the electoral behavior. Right? Now come to the pressure group. 2014 there was a question. There will be no question. Right? There will be no question this year. Because after 2014 there is no higher. But now move to social movement. In each year you can find question from social movement. Right? So there will be question on social movement. Now move to paper 2. Now if you look at question, right here, first topic is comparative politics. 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, right, 16. Every year you have question, you have to face question from, right, any question from this topic, right. Then next one is state. Now if you see state to 21, then 18, then 16, this time there is less chance from this. Now move to the next topic, which is participation and representation. Now I have clubbed one more topic here, that is democracy. Right, the 11th topic, global concern. Right, democracy, human rights, environment. Because democracy is very much related to this. Right? You can find every year. This is 2014 to 2021. 2 questions will come. 2 questions will come, and 2 questions comes every year. Come to year. 20 में 2 था, 21 में 3 questions. In 2020 there was a question. 2 questions, there were 2 questions in 2019, 3 questions in 2019. 18 there was only 1 question, 17 1 question. So look at from 2018 and above, thereafter trend is higher from asking this side. Right? So this is more important. Now if you look at the next one, which is globalization. If you see this topic globalization, you can see 2021, 20, 17, 16, 15, there will be question on globalization. Fine. If you look at next topic, which is approaches to the IR, right? There are different perspectives of international relations. I talked about idealism, liberalism, there are system theory, there are functional, neo-functional theory. We will talk about more than that. In this school of IR, we will talk about neo-realism, we will talk about neoliberalism, right? New debate, if you log it and each interparallel debate depends on what happens. पढ़ते इतना टाइम सर आप जल्दी कर दीजिए सर बहुत टाइम हो गया. It does happen, right? You become impatient, then I reduce my teaching needs. But if you will cooperate with me, then of course I will tell you shortly you क्या है, right? But हमें focus करना है. We have to focus on this tradition. Now, you see, there are many perspectives of international relations. And you see, in 2021, 2018, if you look at this 21, 18, 17, if you look at Marxist approach to IR, you can see 12, 21, 19. If you look at functional system theory, 18, 17, it means at least 2 questions come from this topic. All are the same subtopic, right? Perspective of IR. So you have idealist, liberal, Marxist, fine. Now, if you look at next topic, which is key concept in IR. So there are many key concepts. We talked about power, balance of power, collective security, right? So if you look at this topic, if you look at this topic, so in 2016 there were questions from national interest, there will be no question. 2014 इससे पुराना होगा, balance इससे question आएगा, पक्का question आएगा balance of powers. Question क्या आएगा? China और US का क्या चल रहा है? Now if you see, the world is most polarized since 1990. If you look at the world after the World War II, there was a polarization. Just after 1945, there was a Cold War, right? Now, if you look at this time, you can find US, UK, and EU largely is one side, and if you see here Russia and China on the other, right? Meanwhile, there are non-aligned states like India. So, balance of power से यहाँ पर question होगा. How China wants to replace US as a hegemon power, or what are the grand strategy of China to replace US? क्या कर रहा है China? कर क्या रहा है? किस तरह से उसको replace करेगा? Fine. Then we'll talk about deterrence. ठीक है? Transnational actor. Okay. We will talk about all this. But there will be one question, but most probably is balance of power से question होना चाहिए, right? But now collective security 2020 में आया था, अभी collective security से question आएगा ही नहीं. Balance of power से सवाल आएगा, because you are very early to explain you all this, because आपको अभी समझ नहीं आ रहा होगा कि balance of power क्या है, ये क्या है, वो क्या है. जब पढ़ लेंगे आपको कुछ समझ understanding हो जाएगी. Okay, this is the thing. Now come to the rise of superpower. Here to 20, 21, 20, 16, 18, 15, 14, each year there is a question. So there may be a question from this side. Now look at the NAM, non-aligned movement. Now 20 there is a question, 19, 18 there will be a question in 2022. Relevance of NAM, right? Because if the world is totally highly polarized. Now if you look at the evolution of international economic system, that is World Bank, IMF, WTO, there was a question in 2020, there was a question in 2020, there was a question in 2019, 21 there was also a question, but that question I have put in the second, India and the other institutions. Now if you look at United Nations, there will be a question from the WTO, this side, this year, 2022. Now United Nations 21, 20, 19, there was 3 questions. Now if you look at 17, there was a question, 16, there was a question, 15, you can understand. Fine. Now look at regionalization of politics. Every year question comes. In 2021 there were two questions. 21 questions, 19, 18, 17. It means we have to prepare very carefully. Then contemporary global conditions. Since democracy, I have covered with the topic number 3. So now here human rights, 19, 18 question either. Because in UN Human Rights Council, there is a resolution against the Russia. Right? So there will be question and probability. If you look for about environment, every year there is a question. 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 14. And we are discussing last 6-7 years question. Now move to the next one, which is nuclear proliferation. 18 there was a question. 17 there will be no question on proliferation this side. Now let me talk about section B, which has 8 topics. We have already discussed syllabus. Let's talk about question. Now first question was India's and the world. Oh, these are the syllabus. Now if you look at the question, 21, 19, 18, 18 there were 2 questions, 3 questions in 18, 17, 16, it means question will be there from here, right? There means in UPSC. Now if you look at institution of 21, there was a question, 20, 19, 18, 15, there was a question. So each year you can find question. India and NAM, 21 there was a question, 19 there was a question, 16, 20 to be hoga. But the question on India, the position on India, Russia, Ukraine. Russia, Ukraine war. What is India's diplomatic policy? Right? So, now if you look at next one, that is India and South Asia, every year there is a question you can find, 21, 20, 17, 16, India-Pakistan pe, right? 20 mein tha, India-Pakistan pe relation hai, India-Nepal and Bangladesh are important this time. Right? India-Nepal and Bhutan, 20, 17, 15, 18. See, Bangladesh, 21 there is already question, 20 there was a question, 15, 22, even Bangladesh and Nepal, right? Very important. Bangladesh and Nepal for this year are important. Why? Because India, has established Maitri Divas, celebrated Maitri Divas, because India helped Bangladesh in its liberation, right? And they celebrate the Maitri Divas, and there was a huge conference between India and Bangladesh. If you look at India and Southeast Asia relations, for example, so here you can have 21, 19, 18, right? 18, there are 2 questions, 17, so you can find question from here, India and Southeast Asia, right? And if you look at India and Global South, when I talk about Global South, then Global North is the developed country. EU countries are developed country or Global North country. US, UK, right? So, and the Global South is India, Latin America, Asia and Africa. So here we have to read India and Global South. So India and Latin America, India and Africa. But every year you can find question. 2021, 20, 19, 18. You can 17 every year you have question. I will take 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes from now. I hope. Now if you see India and this demand new for the WTO. 21 there was a question, 18, 17, so you can see on WTO there is a question in 2021. In 2022 there is a question on India and WTO. Right? Or they may ask what is Geneva package? Right? Because the fund this time WTO summit was held in Geneva. Right, and all countries agreed on certain things. For example, food, how to deal with the food crisis, how to TRIPS waiver, intellectual property waivers on vaccines technology, then subsidies, then human reform. So there will be questions. Now come to the India and global power. India, US 20 there was a question, 19, 18, 17, 15. Now look at 2022. There may be question, right? India is in dilemma because India has good relation with US, India has good relation with Russia. Now Russia and US is enemy, right? They were enemy, now they are enemy, right? Now it's very dilemma, right? So whether India should go, depends. Right, so there will be question. Now come to India and EU. India and UPSC इसलिए होगा. Now India and EU had signed free trade agreement this year, right? So very important. And if you look at India and EU trade, that has increased exponentially, right? So that's why very important. Now come to India, Japan, 2021, 20, right? 18. This time Japan is not so much important, right? That's my prediction, but there are many questions, right? Look at 28 questions UPSC has asked from paper 1, 28 from paper 2. 56 questions they have to choose, right? And you have to write 19 and 19, total 38. Both. Now India, China, 21, 20, 19, there were 2 questions, 17. What do you think about 2022? Definitely there will be a question from India, China, right? Now look at the next one, which is India and Russia. 2021 there was question, 2017 there was question. This year there is no. 2020 already asked. Friend है but US का पूछेगा, US और रशिया तीनों मिला सकता है, right? Triangle maybe, so they can put US, India and Russia, right? And now they will ask you the India's position, how India can maintain a balance relations with US and Russia at the same time when the entire world is highly polarized. Fine, right? Then come to the next one, which is, what is that? India and United Nations system. When you see overlapping, there will study United Nations and we will club, while we study, we will club the district role. We will study United Nations system and then we will talk about India's role, right, in United Nations. 2021, 20, 19, 18, 17, 17, 16, 15, you can see question, right? Now, if you see, there are in United Nations there are several resolutions against Russia, and every time India abstained. Even SC may be took India is also non-permanent member in United Nations Security Council, right? In वहाँ पर भी Security General Assembly में भी, right? Human Rights Council में भी abstain कर बहुत हुआ. 9 times India abstained in in different resolution. So question will be there, right, from there. Now if you look at the next one, which is not India, a nuclear question, right? 21 there was question, 20, 19, 17. So the nuclear, India is a nuclear power, right? And not only India, if you see Asia, there are 3 nuclear power or 5 nuclear power. Who are they? India, Pakistan, China, North Korea, Israel, 5 हो गया. Now Iran is planning to have nuclear weapon. No any country are so competitive in possessing nuclear weapon. No country, neither Europe nor Africa nor America, either South or North, whatever you call. But so question here, nuclear question is very important, right? We will talk about their proliferation, what happened when India did it. Right, now talk about recent development of India's foreign policy. For example, I was talking about, India recently had meeting with India, UAE, US and Israel. So ITU2, right? And There was a recently last year Taliban took over in Afghanistan. What is India's response? Right? How India came very closer to the Israel. How it's very becoming very difficult for India to maintain a good relations with all the Gulf kingdoms. Right? So for example, we are going a little away with the Iran, but with UAE we are coming closer. Right? The Prime Minister traveled four times from since 2014. India UAE made a free trade agreement recently. Right? So we will talk about every year there is a question, 2-3 questions from this. So we will talk about all this. Right? So that is the entire questions I have discussed. That is done. Books you don't need to buy. Right? But I'll give you, don't worry, it will be needed. Otherwise, my dictation will be sufficient. What is measure important to know that answer it. Right? From the next week, I'll give you question. Every week we will have question test. Every week. Right? So for example, we will finish plateau, we will have test on plateau. So it's very important how to write answer. First thing, when we will pursue our syllabus, you should understand clearly. Or before, I should explain things clearly. That also very important. I should explain things clearly. You should grasp things clearly, and you should be able to write things clearly. Clear understanding is very important. Right? So anything you write in your own language. You know the story. Everything is a story. That is nothing called very science अच्छा H2 और क्लोरीन को मिलाना पड़ेगा, कितना कंपोनेंट डालेंगे तो क्या रिएक्शन होगा, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Right? It's all a story, a lovely story. For example, we'll read this philosophy, will become philosopher in our life. Right? For example, we'll talk about international relations, we'll become a diplomat in our life. We'll talk like a diplomat. Right? Our perspective should be like a diplomat. Right? When you talk about Indian politics, so for example, if you are talking about parliament, you must behave like an MP. Right? Your perspective should be from there. Parliamentary perspective. Right? Perspective from the state. Parliament is a part of the state. Right? So first, your language is very good. Your understanding is very good. Secondly, coherency between the paragraph. For example, there is a one question, right? And you have written answer. Right? There is a question, you have written answer. And you have written 3 paragraph or 4 paragraph or 5 paragraph. There need to be coherency. There should not be disrupt ending of paragraph 1. And then you start again paragraph, again disrupt ending, again you start third paragraph. No. Right? There should be some coherency. Coherency क्या होता है? Last line of paragraph, try to mention something which will start in the second paragraph. Got the idea? So I add something and then I read something which is you have already mentioned. Right? First in coherency, then political science and international relations are established object. There are many scholars. Right? So I told you that behave like a diplomat, but it is not like you behave like a student of diplomacy. Right? But there are so many diplomats. Right? For example, S. Jaishankar, there are M.K. Narayanan, right? There are many scholars like Dharmachelani. There are many scholars who have spoken about everything. Right? So you have to cite. First, read the question, give introduction, then write answer, try to address the answer, and then cite those output. Either Brahmachelani or S. Jaishankar or any Ansari or any Harshdeep Pant, we will talk about. You have to cite and you have to write in your own. You have to cite those authors and then you have to conclude. That is the way of writing. आराम से लिखना है, अपने अंडरस्टैंडिंग पे लिखना है. Got the idea? Secondly, अब स्ट्रक्चर क्या होगा? ये तो हो गया कि ऐसे लिखना है, अपनी भाषा में लिखना है, साइट करना, you have to cite, established scholars, diplomats, thinkers. What would be the structure? Right? What should be the structure? First, if question is asked something about that, something like about US and India, then your introduction should be that the India and US both shares commonality, like democracy, rule of law, right? Freedom, competitive political party, right? And then you have to start addressing the answer from the body. You don't need to demonstrate your scholarship. I know by that time you will acquire so many things. You will know so many things. But you have to direct give the answer in 3 or 4 paragraphs. जो क्वेश्चन पूछा है डायरेक्ट आंसर देना है, right? Then last you have to conclude. What will be the conclusion? Summary of the entire your body. Summary of your body would be the conclusion. Fine. So three lines should be introduction, 3 to 4 paragraphs should be body, and last 3-4 lines again the conclusion. Now we need to some care, right? Address the question directly. I told you that what happens when I check the question paper, answer sheet. People don't write, students don't write direct answer. They show demonstration. They demonstrate their knowledge. UPSC is not. UPSC knows that you are already good, but they want to know first what they have asked, isn't it? For example, if I ask what is your name, sir, I am from Bombay. I do film. I act like this. I have asked what your name, right? So when they ask what is your name, just say this is my name. Introduce yourself. First you have to care. Then you have to quote. I told you that there are established authors, scholars that you have to quote. You have to take care. And thirdly, coherency, which I have already talked about. There should be coherency in your writing. And that should start with the first test, right? And by the way, gradually you will acquire things. You will know that how to write a good answer. It's all about practice. Practice is very, very important. So that is it for today. Yeah. So as we have talked about syllabus, we have talked about questions. I have suggested you books, but you don't need books. I need to share some idea with you which I will not share in the future, in the next few months when we complete PSIR. What is the necessary thing to know, right? First thing you need to know that you also make a commitment, right? Once you make a commitment, means commitment, and that is very necessary, right? You must have seen, a Salman Khan movie, Bollywood movie, where he said, "मैं अपना commitment खुद भी नहीं तोड़ता," right? So you have thought about to prepare UPSC, right? And you must have thought about the optional paper, GS paper, what kind of a struggle you have to carry on. What kind of difficulty you may face, but once you have made commitment, okay, then do it, right? Secondly, I will talk about regularity. That is second formula, right? Every year I do share with my students. Regularity means be regular. You may find weather, different kind of weather, for example, a severe cold or severe hot, or it may be raining, right? But you should reach classroom, right? For example, someone may say that, sir, at my house, there was some function, so I did not come. Sir, there was my cousin's marriage, I was engaged into that. Someone may say, that, sir, I had eaten so much in party last night and I had loose motion. Any reason could be, and you can break the regularity, right? When you break the regularity, think about you are breaking the commitment too. Both are very closed. Fine. So once you made the commitment, okay, I have to prepare, okay, for 5 months, right, or 5 to 5.5 months, or maybe 6 months, you must be regular every day. And a person's successful is predicted by their perseverance. If you are regular, it means you are sincere. It means you are sincere. Right? So be regular. Don't give excuse. Right? Concentrate on yourself. Third, I will tell you about focus. So once you have focus on UPSC, right? Don't divert. Focus means don't divert. Okay, sir, I have also filled state PCS form. Sir, I have also filled bank PO form. Sir, I have also filled this form or that form. I have applied for SSC. I have done joined this. Don't do that. Right? Be focused on UPSC and don't do another thing. It requires lots of time. Right? UPSC demands lots of time that to be invested by you. Right? Therefore, you don't need to, divert. You have to focus on UPSC. There will be many occasions, right? For example, sometimes economic, difficulty or scarceness. Sometimes some social issues. Sometimes, some psychological issue. Sometimes, some other issue may try to divert you, but don't divert. Focus. Focus on UPSC. And fourth thing, that believe. Right? Believe. Right? Since you have started a journey and in the next 1 year you have to attempt UPSC, right? And it may take 2 years or may 3 years, but on several occasions you may feel low, right? You may feel, problem, but believe in yourself. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Barack Obama, the first black president of the US, what was his famous slogan? Yes, I can. And you all have potential. You all have potential. If you maintain all three, fourth is the outcome. Fourth is the outcome. Right? So if you have made commitment, right, do it, otherwise you leave it. But if you have made a commitment with your own self, don't promise other, promise to yourself what you have to do. Right? Make a small goal. For example, make a week goal weekly, right? And achieve larger. Second, be regular in the class. Be regular in the class, right? It may be the case, you may find people are not coming, after few months when, after sometimes they think this is all moh maya, kya hai, kuch bhi nahi hai. But no, be regular from first day to the end and make your notes. Try to understand. Be regular and focus on it. Don't, divert. And yes, you can. You have such potential. You have such potential. You can do it. I will not talk about the entire preparation. In the entire preparation, this is the day when I'm talking with you at the end of first orientation class. right? It will help you, right? Time to time, I will give you, more lecture so that, your confidence should go up, right? So that is the first class. Today, we will see you next day. Okay? Bye. See you then.